I rise today to speak in support of the nomination of Gina McCarthy to be this nation's next EPA administrator. Mr. President, you and I know Gina McCarthy's work firsthand because prior to joining the EPA, she was our commissioner in the state of Connecticut of the Department of Environmental Protection, where she served under a Republican governor, worked with both parties to advance the environmental and business interests of the state. And so first, I want to very briefly share with my colleagues why I support Gina McCarthy. But then I frankly want to talk about why I believe that my Republican colleagues who may not be supportive every single day of the year of the mission of the EPA should support her as well. I support Gina McCarthy because for her entire career, she has been a champion of public health. A lot of people who rise to lead federal agencies, they spend the majority of their career here in Washington. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there is something special that comes with somebody like Gina McCarthy, who started her career as a local public health official in Canton, Massachusetts. She learned public health at the ground level. And she understood very early on that the government working together with the business community can have an enormously positive effect on the health of our nation. I support her because she's come up the right way through the grassroots of America's public health infrastructure. I support her because of the great work that she did in Connecticut when she was, as I mentioned, our Republican-appointed Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection. One of the things she did was work with states all throughout the Northeast on something called RGGI, which is a voluntary association of states throughout the Northeast region to try to reduce carbon emissions. There is nothing but success when you tell the story of RGGI. She did this under a Republican governor. There are a number of Republican governors along with Democrats who participated in this plan. But over time, the plan was to reduce carbon emissions from northeastern states by 10%, moving towards 2018. But through this mechanism, what we have seen is not just a reduction in carbon emissions from Connecticut and the states that participate, but a pretty amazing reduction in the amount that ratepayers are paying. Why? Because through this rather modest cap and trade regime, we were able to take the money gleaned through the system and put it right back into efficiencies so that ratepayers were paying less. So much so that the estimates are that consumer bills will be $1.1 billion less because of the work that Gina McCarthy did. It's an average of about $25 off the bill of a residential homeowner and about $181 off the bill of commercial consumers. And I support her because of what she's done since she's come to the EPA, leading the air quality initiatives at the EPA. She's just made a huge difference. You take a look at just the mercury and air toxins rule alone, and the estimates are almost hard to comprehend. 11,000 premature deaths will be prevented because of the work that she did. Just on that one effort alone, 4,700 heart attacks will be prevented because of these toxins disappearing from our air. And, maybe most importantly to those of us with little kids at home, 130,000 asthma attacks won't happen in this country, largely to children, because we'll have cleaner air to breathe. I support Gina McCarthy because of the work that she's done her entire career to be a great steward of the environment and a resolute champion of clean air. But I want to talk for just a few minutes about why I think our Republican colleagues should support her as well. We had a breakthrough this week on the issue of how this body will treat at least this set of nominees. And I think there was agreement between Republicans and Democrats that the president of whatever party he may be, he or she should get his or her team in place, and that this body should work to make sure that that occurs. And maybe with the one caveat that there should be a responsibility of the president to put people with a pragmatic mind in charge of agencies that might be ones in which there's disagreement here over their mission. I might not expect my Republican colleagues to support somebody going to the CFPB or to the EPA that is just a rigid ideologue. But I think there is agreement that if the president does choose a pragmatist, somebody that is willing to reach out across the aisle, that is willing to build coalitions, then this body should support the president's team. And I want to make the case to my Republican colleagues as they make their final decision as to how they're going to vote on Gina McCarthy. That is exactly who she is. You know, lots has been made of the fact that she really, with the exception of her appointment to the EPA during her tenure under President Obama, has been a Republican appointee. It wasn't just Governor Jody Rell, a Republican that I disagreed with on a lot of things back in Connecticut, that appointed her to head up our DEP, but she also, of course, got her start in the higher ranks of environmental protection from Mitt Romney in Massachusetts. And so she has clearly demonstrated that she's someone that is able to work across the aisle. But what I think Republicans want to know is, as she presides over an EPA that is going to move forward with new regulations for proposed power plants, and we hope will move ahead with new clean air regulations for existing power plants. Is she going to do that in a rigid, arbitrary fashion, or is she going to be willing to listen to industry as well? And so I want to just give you a couple quotes that come from people that work in the industry, people, frankly, that I don't agree with, that the president doesn't agree with, and frankly, that Gina McCarthy isn't going to agree with all the time, but people who have worked with her who have, at worst, a begrudging respect for the work that she's done, and at best, frankly, an admiration. William Bumpers, who's a partner at a law firm in town who represents power plants and other industry clients, says, quote, Gina McCarthy is one of these avid environmental program managers who is exceptionally competent but practical. My experience with her in the past 4 years, I can meet with her. She's very forthright. There's no guile with her. While I haven't always agreed with the rules that come out of there, there's never been any guesswork about what comes out of there. Gloria Berquist, who's the vice president of the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers, says she is a pragmatic policymaker. She has aspirational environmental goals, but she accepts real-world economics. Charles Warren, who was a top EPA official in the Reagan administration, who now represents a lot of people in the industry, says, at EPA as a regulator, you're always asking people to do the things they don't want to do. But Gina, she's made an effort to reach out to industries while they're developing regulation. She's got a good reputation. And even the spokesman for the National Mining Association, this might come under the category of grudging respect, but he says she is very knowledgeable. I don't think anyone is questioning her understanding or ability. She will not be caught off guard in any defense of what they have done. I expect her to be well informed. She just doesn't strike me as an ideologue. This is what the industry says. We know that Republicans support her because that's how she got the jobs that led to her position at the EPA. But even within industry, they recognize that they are going to disagree with her. They are not going to come down to the EPA in a parade of support for some of the things that she may do, but they acknowledge that she's going to listen and that to the extent possible, she's going to work with them. And I think that's who we want at the EPA. And I think that's who Gina McCarthy will be. And I don't think that just because of speculation. I think that because as the junior senator from Connecticut, I watched her walk the walk and talk the talk in Connecticut. I know that she did it in Massachusetts because that's why we picked her in Connecticut, and I've certainly seen her do it in her years heading clean air policy at the EPA. For my friends who want a strong, passionate advocate for clean air, you got one in Gina McCarthy. And for my friends who want a pragmatist who, though they may disagree with, is going to at least be practical in how she implements the policies of this administration, you have that voice too. Gina McCarthy will be a great pick at the EPA, and I urge my colleagues to support her.